on GMAT. Before we get started, I just want to make sure you guys can hear me all right, so I won't be talking to myself. So if any one of you could just tell me in the chat that you can hear me, that would be great. I see some of you are typing. That's a good sign. Thank you, Sashi. Thank you, 112. All right, let's get the show on the road. Thank you, Suganda. Hello, Kajal. Great. Good to be with you guys. So we have a lot in store for this hour, so I'm going to try and get this started quickly. You're going to hear from me. You're going to hear from Iliana from PrepAdviser about your applications. So let's get this show on the road. Now, before we get started, I just want to tell you guys a little bit about examPAL, who we are and what we do. So my name is Dave, as I just said. I'm a senior tutor at examPAL. That means I am a GMAT teacher. I have been for a while. Excuse me, and I do so through examPAL. Now, if you've already signed up to this webinar, that means you automatically have full access to our video lessons. And you probably know our team is there to answer any questions you might have about the GMAT, about examPAL, about anything. So what are we? What is examPAL? examPAL is a company a few GMAT teachers started with the understanding that students all around the globe are paying too much and they're doing it for the wrong product. And they only realize this, the students, after they complete their preparation, when it's too late. So what are most students and most study plans and courses missing? Well, are you familiar with that feeling when someone is explaining something to you and you just don't get it? I think we all probably are, right? So imagine what it's like to prepare for admissions tests such as the GMAT, the GRE, or the SATs, where these questions and these tests can have up to 10 different possible solution tools that is, and all you need to do is find the fastest one for you. And the thing is that students in the world, when they're studying, are bombarded with thousands of practice questions, tips, tricks, and shticks, which are there to help everybody in the exact same way. Now, the thing that we've realized is that there is no such thing as the explanation. I've personally taught lots of students over the years. And when a novice teacher comes to me and asks me, how do you explain this question? My answer is, to whom? How do you explain it to whom? There's no one way to explain it. And that's really examPAL in a nutshell, okay? We don't just explain what makes the correct answer correct. We ask ourselves who you are. So we study the way you think in examPAL, okay? And the site also studies the effectiveness of all the different possible solution strategies. If there's a faster way to do it than the way you're already doing it, we're going to find it. Using this information, we find the best way to solve each question, and we do it at a personalized level for the student that's using it. Now, in many ways, this is better than what private tutors can even do, because examPAL as a system is with you in each and every question, from the basics to the hardest ones. And when we offer a solution strategy, it's not just guesswork. We're actually measuring if it works, for how many people, how much of the time, how much does it take, how much time does it take them. So just to summarize, there's the pain that a lot of test takers feel when they study comes from the fact that they spend lots of time and lots of money preparing for admission tests, only to realize that the courses that they're taking, the physical brick and mortar courses, they're frustrating because, as I said, there can be lots of different ways to solve each question. And how, using these courses, do you find the way that's best for you? B, there can be ineffective because if the most important thing is time, then how can a one-size-fits-all course tell you what the fastest way to solve a question is for you specifically with your specific strengths and weaknesses? And finally, they're time-consuming, right? These courses teach us lots of thousands of questions, and some of them are going to be at a level that's too easy for us, some of them are going to be at a level that's too hard for us, and they won't be effective. So our belief is that you should focus only on what you need. Now, also, I want to point out that there's a far greater revolution that this is part of, and this is understanding what the preparation for these exams really means. Now, the key to this is that these tests are really unlike the ones you've had in high school. Mastering admissions tests, the GMAT prominently included, isn't about knowledge, but rather it's about something we call cognitive flexibility, which is your ability to change your set of tools very quickly according to the changes in the data that you're getting. Okay, this is why the GMAT has really harsh time constraints, and it's why in it we have to move from algebra to geometry to word problems very quickly. So at examPAL, what we try to do is not just provide you with all the knowledge you need for the test, but to train you to find the fastest way to solve each question. Now, how do we do that, you might be asking? So it starts with we have interactive video lessons when you study our course. And each topic starts with a short video teaser, which is usually pretty funny, and then the lesson, and then there's an introduction, sorry, which gives you all the basic tools you need, whether it be formulas or the logic behind a new concept. And from then on, we move to a lesson in which we demonstrate how different questions can be solved using different approaches. Next, there's our special sauce, if you will, which is our practice, right? That's really where the magic happens. Each practice session for each topic starts with a diagnostic phase. So as I said, we found that there are lots of different ways to solve a question. And even though there are sometimes more than 10 ways to solve the same question, all these different ways and all these different solution tools can be divided into three major strategies: precise, alternative, and logical. And that's the PAL in examPAL. So now you know where our name came from. So in the diagnostic phase, we analyze how well you're using each of these strategies. For example, this question that you see on the screen, it can be solved logically by figuring out the ratio between the numerator and the denominator. It can be solved precisely just by simplifying the algebraic expression, or it can be solved alternatively by using simple numbers and plugging them in. All of these tools can get us to the same solution, which will be obviously the same solution for all of them, right? So in the diagnostic phase, we quickly learn what your level is in implementing each of these tools. After that comes the improvement phase, okay, in which we focus on your level and we find the best questions for you to solve in order to improve your skills. Right, this means being a best is, okay, but not only that, it's also finding out which tools work best for the student. And can then finally, the best part, the optimization phase, in which both the questions you see and the solution strategies you see after each question are chosen to match your own personal needs. Okay, in this question, in this example, there's a question that the system has found 4 solution strategies ranked in order of relevance for you. Okay, so really we do all of this using data from over 50,000 students from over 156 countries, and our students help us help you. And it works. We've shown that an average user using examPAL reaches his highest possible level with these segments of just 30 questions per topic. We've gotten all kinds of awards and recognition in the fields of education, innovation, and artificial intelligence, and students are into it. We've heard a lot of good things from them. But last but not least, and if you've been listening till now, this is where it pays off. We put our money where our mouth is. We give you a real success guarantee. 70 points in the GMAT, up to 7 points in the GRE. And the reason I say the word real is because we're not one of those places where improvement is measured relatively to a mock test you've done where you had no clue about anything. If you have a previous score, an official score on the GMAT that you're not satisfied with, we guarantee you're going to improve it significantly, as I said, by 70 points. So, bottom line, this is your last, very, very last chance to hop on and take advantage of our Black Friday sale, which is 40% off any and all of our courses only for the next 24 hours. Do not miss this opportunity. Go to examPAL.com and take us up on it. So that was just a little bit about who we are and what we do. And now what's going to happen is I'm going to hand this off to Iliana, who's going to talk to us about how business schools evaluate applicants' profiles. And in about 20 minutes, you're going to hear back. We're going to hand it off back to me, and I'm going to talk to you guys about building the perfect study guide for you. So I'm going to hand this off to Iliana, and I'll speak to you guys soon.
Thank you, Dave. Hello, everyone. My name is Iliana Bobova. I'm Head of Admissions Consulting at PrepAdviser. PrepAdviser is a global online preparation network, MBA and master's applicants all over the world, offering a huge variety of free expert advising and test preparation resources for you to choose the best ones for you. And examPAL is one of our partners that we work with on PrepAdviser. So today I will give an outline of who and how evaluates the profiles of MBA applicants. Because the MBA application is a package of different elements, and the GMAT that Dave will talk about is one of the essential elements of the application package, but there are a lot of others that you have to take good care of before you submit your application. To understand the perspective from which I will be speaking, very briefly, I have been a recruitment and admissions counselor for 6 years for bachelor's, master's, and also an executive MBA program. So I have the inside information of how admissions committees review the applications. Over 20 years, I'm in international education consulting, and I'm also a career development coach, which gives me a really broad perspective on the MBA application and how it fits within one's goals and careers. And in my role of an admissions coach, I am working with prospective applicants to different business schools all over the world. Applicants also out, and I have a lot of success stories with my students in top business schools around the world. So, the highlights for you tonight. The evaluation of your MBA profile can come at different stages, and I would like to start early what you should know before you start your application to a business school, what you should do in the early stages while you do the actual selection of where you're going to apply. So at this early stage, how can you make sure that you are the right fit for an MBA, whether you're eligible to apply for an MBA, how you can stand out among your competitors? So first, there are different automatic online tools. Basically, there you fill out some information that is relevant to your MBA application, and you get a reply about, it's a written reply about how well you fit the profile of an MBA applicant and to what caliber of schools you qualify for admission, or whether you have to improve some areas of your profile before you apply, so that you improve your chances. On PrepAdviser, there are a number of online options for you to evaluate your profile. Some of them are automated tools, others involve expert feedback on your profile. So this is the second option. Before you select the schools where you apply, you can contact an expert or an admissions coach and have an independent feedback on your skills, portfolio, and a strategy about how you can stand out during the application process. And also, in this early stage, you can get valuable feedback from business schools admission officers themselves. Even if you're not going to apply to a particular school or if you're wondering whether you stand chances there, you can approach the business schools and have their feedback. So you can do this online. For example, on PrepAdviser, you can join frequently, several times per month, webinars conducted by the admissions teams of leading MBA programs from around the world. And during these webinars, you can inquire about how they can provide feedback on your profile before you even apply. You can also join the live chats, or you can meet the admissions officers at face-to-face events, like the ones that are organized all over the world by the Access MBA Tour, or the Access Executive MBA Tour, or the Premier EMBA Tour, where you will meet schools for which you have the chances to be admitted, and schools which actually fit your preferences and potential for admission. So there is a lot to do while you're still thinking about the MBA and while you're still researching your options. So then during the actual application to a business school, there is, as you can see on the screen, a long list of people who will be looking at your application package. And it's important to realize that it's really a diversity of people who will evaluate, so that you can make sure that your application speaks to each of them in a particular way. So stage one is usually the admissions officers and recruiters who will review your application. And then on a second stage, your papers and test scores and essays and academic transcripts, etc., will be reviewed by the MBA admissions director, again by the admissions officers, but also the MBA program director, who has an overview of the academic side of the program, will be looking into your application, making sure whether you have the potential and whether you have the right expectations from this program, and whether the program will be useful for you and for your career goals. Then parts of your application can be reviewed by current students or alumni who can be involved at different stages of the application and application review process, either reviewing parts of your application or conducting some interviews with you. So they will also be providing feedback on your qualities, potential, personality, etc. And curiously enough, more and more career center directors sit on the admissions committees, because of course the MBA is all about career development and career change, but each school and each MBA program is very specific. So the career director sits on the committee and looks at your application to make sure that you have the right expectations for the school. So very simply, if the school has a good track record of graduates placed in a certain industry or a certain geographical region, and your declared career goals are very different from that, you might seem not to be the right fit for the school, and it will be perfectly beneficial for both sides, both the school and you, not to get admitted, because no one wants to disappoint you, and the school doesn't want to have graduates who are disappointed with the program. So all these people in different positions will be looking at your application package to make sure that you are the right fit for their program. So now let's disclose a little bit more what is actually the business school profile. So there is a long list of elements that are all ensured through the application process that compile your profile and that revealed who are you and what is your potential for success in a graduate management program. So some of them are minimum eligibility requirements, like your academic qualifications. You need to have minimum a bachelor's degree, or master's is also acceptable, but at least a first university degree, because the MBA is an academic program on the master's level. Then another requirement that is particularly important for MBA programs is your professional qualification. There is a requirement for the number of years you have in full-time work experience. For full-time MBA programs, it's minimum 2 or 3. For executive MBA programs, it's often minimum 5, but it can be higher. And some business schools require an average number of work experience, which is much higher than these minimum requirements. And you can have MBA classes where the average experience is 10 years, even though the requirement might be just 2 years. Also, it's not just the number of years that you have worked, it's how relevant your work experience is to our career in management, to a career in business leadership. So this information, which will come from your CV and other elements of the package, should reveal that you have the potential exactly for business leadership and for senior managerial roles. Then come the aptitude requirements. Aptitude means whether you have the potential to succeed in graduate studies. Your grade point average, your score from your university diploma will be considered. And also your academic transcripts. Although for MBA it is not that important what scores you have in your previous university degree, there might be issues if you have low scores on some subjects that are related to your business and management studies, or if you come from an academic background that is, for example, humanities or social sciences or arts, that doesn't suppose a lot of quantitative skills that are very important for the MBA studies. And here the GMAT has a big role to play. Again, they will be looking at the quality of your work experience. What were your responsibilities so far? Did you have managerial responsibilities? Not necessarily a managerial role, but responsibilities that are related to management of people, management of time, etc. Your academic and professional interests will also be considered. And finally, all the tests that are required for admission come into play to guarantee that you have the essential skills to study in the program. So first, for non-native speakers, for non-native English speakers, there will be a requirement for a language test, either TOEFL, either IELTS, either Cambridge Advanced Proficiency exams, or other international standardized tests, providing proof that you're fluent in English for academic studies. Although many people use English in their everyday work environment, this doesn't mean that they're fluent in English for academic purposes. So that is why business schools require that applicants sit a standardized test. Then come the aptitude tests such as GMAT and more often the GRE, general test, also now being accepted by many business schools, which test your analytical and quantitative skills. For MBA, it is not required to have a specific background in management, and the GMAT or the general GRE test, they don't test any subject matter knowledge, as you will learn also later from Dave. But for example, GRE has subject tests that might give you an edge depending on the focus of the program where you're applying. So overall, this is the application package and the different elements that bring information about your potential for MBA studies. Of course, as part of the application package, there are also other elements like motivational essays, recommendations, etc. But this is a different talk. It's about how to prepare the application package. Now we focus on what you have to prepare in advance in order to build a strong profile for your application. So what is the process? What happens when your application package comes to the admissions office? So first step is the admissions office makes sure that you fit the eligibility requirements, whether you have the academic qualifications, whether you have the required work experience, and whether you fit the age range of the class. Although this is not a requirement, usually business schools have an average age, a typical average age of their classes. And if you're, for example, a bit younger or a bit older, this should be addressed in your application package so that you give your arguments about why you think you will thrive in an MBA class where the age is a bit different from yours. So then, on the second stage, they will be looking at your test scores. And here it's important to highlight that a high test score always makes a good impression. High test scores can compensate for some elements of your application package. If you have some drawbacks, as I already mentioned, in your quantitative skills during your first university degree studies, a strong quant score on the GMAT will be a perfectly good evidence that at this moment you have the necessary quantitative skills. So my advice is to always aim high and as high as you can when you prepare for the tests. It's always worth the investment. And then in the review of your application comes the analysis of the X factors, which are demonstrated through your essays, career progression, the recommendations. The admissions committee looks very carefully into what is your potential for contribution to the program. What is your unique background and unique experiences, unique knowledge that you will be bringing into the MBA classroom? Because the MBA is very much peer learning. It's very much teamwork. It's very much the professors being facilitators for the MBA participants to learn from each other. So everyone is carefully evaluated about what they can bring into the MBA classroom. Then, through the recommendations and your career aspirations and career plan, you have to demonstrate your potential to grow during the program and after the program. And finally, you should have a clear career plan, and you should have evidence that it's realistic and that it is the right fit for this business school, that this particular program will be able to help you achieve your goals, your career goals. So this is the outline of the elements of your profile, who evaluates them, and how they are evaluated. And I think this is a good start for you to get into more details from here. Here I have listed several specific articles on PrepAdviser and on Access MBA, where you can find more details on each of the topics that I already discussed. And also, as I already mentioned, there are a lot of resources on PrepAdviser where we can discuss, including you can reach me there through the live chat on PrepAdviser and through the forum of PrepAdviser. You can even submit your profile and I can give you feedback on the PrepAdviser forum. Or if you want an individual Skype session, we also have this consulting service on PrepAdviser. So we have a lot of tools which you can use in order to have an initial evaluation of your profile and advice about your areas of improvement and how to position your application and how to select the business schools. Also, it's very much worthwhile to join the webinars that are conducted on PrepAdviser by different business schools, leading business schools internationally, from Europe, from the US, from other parts of the world. And in this way, you will get much more insight from colleagues of mine from admissions offices about what matters in the application process. So thank you for your attention. And as you can see, the application consists of many, many elements, and the tests are just one of these elements. But tests like the GMAT or the GRE can play an essential role in your application because they're one of the first factors that are considered when the screening of your application starts. There are very selective business schools that can really just pre-select candidates based on their scores. So take the time, be committed to your GMAT preparation. It's often the first step because depending on the score that you achieve on the GMAT, then you can actually complete your school selection, opting for schools where you stand chances for admission with your GMAT score. Now I will turn the floor back to Dave. I will be glad to talk to any of you through PrepAdviser. Thanks and have a nice evening.
Hey, thank you very much, Iliana, and good to be back with you guys. So in the time we have left, we're going to talk about a study plan and how to build it. As in the beginning, I'd be happy if one of you can just tell me in the chat that you can hear me all right. But in the meantime, let's start talking about it. So the first question you're going to want to ask yourself when you're building a study plan is how long should your plan be? Right? Now, this question is actually made up of two separate questions. The first is how much should I study in total, right? As in how many hours? And the second is over how long a period should I be spreading my study? How many weeks or months? Just to make sure you guys can hear me okay? Someone could just hit me on that. I see now in the chat. Okay, great. So now we're going to answer the first question right now, and then we're going to present several different answers for the second one. So in one of our recent webinars, we had someone from GMAC, and he shared the following data with us. There's a lot of data on the screen now, so don't get lost in it. I want to direct your attention towards the short sentence in the bottom right corner. Those who score at least 600 study an average of 122 hours. Now, if you look on the left side, you're going to note that the median number of hours grows in accordance with the score that test takers get. Okay, many of the 700 plus scorers are retakers. Okay, so naturally they need time for their preparation. So the bottom line of all of this is we recommend studying for a total of 120 hours in total, and another 30 hours if you're a non-native English speaker. In the middle graph that we already looked at, it gives us a clue as to why. Now, this doesn't mean that studying over 100 hours guarantees that you're going to score 600 or more, right? Obviously, if you're going to sit in front of a piece of paper and just stare at it without knowing what to do, that's not going to get you anywhere, right? So as with other things in life, it's the quality and not just the quantity of what you do. So the real question is, what will determine if these 100 hours are enough? And that's what we're going to discuss now at length. So the second complicated question is over how long a period should I be spending these 100, 120, 150 hours? How long should I start studying on the calendar before I'm actually taking the exam? So the real answer to this is it depends. And the main factor which shapes it is the answer to this question. How much time do you have to devote to it in an average week? Are you devoting all your time? Is it a full-time thing, or is it something you're doing alongside a lot of other things? All things being equal, though, 6 to 8 weeks is the recommended amount of time. It's not too short on the one hand. Okay, it gives you enough time to both study and to breathe, so there's no reason to get overly stressed, as you might if you're trying to prepare in a shorter amount of time. But on the other hand, it's not too long, in which case you might just get exhausted from months of studying, and you might start forgetting things as well. So if fitting in 100 to 120 hours is possible for you during 6 to 8 weeks, and it should be, even for working people who can devote evenings and weekends, this is what we recommend. So that's the short answer. And to give you an example, this plan is perfect for someone like John Doe. So John Doe, he's a first-time GMAT taker, start from scratch. He's a native English speaker, meaning he doesn't have to put an emphasis on vocabulary and memorization study, but he still should make sure to read daily news media and read maybe a novel or something like that in order to optimize his reading pace. And he should also have enough time to go over all the grammatical rules and memorize them, which is something a lot of native speakers kind of tend to neglect, and they pay the price for it. So he works a 9-to-5 job, meaning his study time will be, all of it will be in the evenings and on the weekend. So he can comfortably schedule, say, an hour and a half in the evenings during work week and 4 hours on the weekend, which isn't even that much if you think about it. So in terms of material, he doesn't really know, he's not going to know what his strengths, and weaknesses are until he starts studying. But he knows that he's naturally good, say, at quant topics, and he's more concerned about the verbal section of the exam. And the point is this plan is flexible enough to suit someone who has a few constraints during this 2-month period as well. Say, for example, John, on the one hand, he can take work off the week before the exam, but on the other hand, 3 weeks before, he has a 5-day business trip during which he won't have a second to study at all. Okay, so obviously I give you these examples not because this plan is specifically for someone like this, but that it can work for anyone who has some constraint less on this level, say about a week out of the 60 days that he has constraints in. Okay, so building a good study plan for a longer or a shorter amount of time is possible, but it's less ideal. So what we're going to do now in the time we have left is discuss the 2-month study plan in detail, and then I'm going to outline more quickly how a 1-month plan and a 3-month plan look like. Now, obviously, a lot of us aren't going to have exactly 1, 2, or 3 months, on the calendar. In between, listen to the 2 explanations I give of the plans that are around it and try to combine them in some way. Okay, so one more point before we delve into the plan. If you're retaking the test, everything that follows applies to you as well. You really shouldn't assume that you can just start off at a later point. Before you start, to take a day or two to debrief, to ask yourself what went well up till now, what went wrong, what does that mean you should work on. If you had a problem with knowing the material, that means you need to go and study it. Okay, if your time was that you didn't have enough time, if your problem, sorry, was that you didn't have enough time, then you need to make a plan, a time management plan, how you solve that problem. And if you're making silly mistakes, kind of the kind of mistakes that once you do them, you sort of look at it and you're like, oh, that doesn't count. I knew that. I just got confused. Then that's actually something you shouldn't ignore. That's something that there are practical solutions to work on, and you need to think of how they can be, how you can not make the same mistakes again. You might want to order the enhanced score report, which can give you an analysis. So in general, if you're a retaker, do everything again, but do it more and do it better, okay? So let's talk about a 2-month study plan. So the operative word here is plan, as in your goal is to know what you're going to do for every day for the next 60 or so days till you're doing the plan. Now, while that might sound ambitious, let's break it down into doable tasks. So the first thing is make a list of all the non-GMAT things you have to do over the next 60 days. And here, try and be thorough and overly optimistic. We say to ourselves, I'm going to study every day after work for 4 hours, and I'm just going to blow off anything else, and that's what I'm going to do. But then, life happens, and we can't actually do that. So try and be really realistic about what stuff you're going to have. Budget, not only things that are really commitments you can't get out of, but also things that just realistically you're going to want to do. Social stuff, exercise, that kind of thing, those kinds of things. And taking that into account, budget about 100 to 120 hours in the calendar over the next 60 days. Make sure that you have enough time. If you don't, maybe you should be looking at a longer study plan. Okay, but as I noted with John, this is doable even if you're working. All right, so schedule the day for studying when you're both obviously available, and B, realistically you're going to be able to focus. It doesn't help to study between midnight and 4 a.m. if you're not going to be focused. So what does your study plan look like? So your first 47 days are going to be devoted to subject review and practice. So the first thing to do is to make a list of all the GMAT topics, not just verbal and quant, but more specifically in that, all the subtopics which make up these sections, especially the quant. Now on examPAL, this is automatic actually. You don't have to do this because our course is built up of all these relevant subtopics, which you just tackle one by one. So once you know what there is to study, you have to plan a 2-day mini schedule for each topic. And it looks like this. On the first day, you're going to review fundamental material. Okay, so on examPAL, this means watching the intro and then making sure you know all the basic rules and terminology, moving on to watch the lesson to experience real test questions and refine your answer strategies. And while you're doing it, by the way, while you're watching these things, I want you to compile 2 separate lists. One is a summary of material, and the other is a list of practical tips for question solving, stuff that you see that works for you and you want to remember to keep implementing. On the second day of your 2-day mini schedule, say you're working on circles. So the first day you watch the fundamental material on circles. The second day you solve questions on the topic of circles. On examPAL, this means completing our practice phase, the diagnostic, the improvement, and the optimization, which I talked about at the top of the hour. After each section, you're going to want to review your mistakes and keep a running list of the mistakes that you've been doing and update your tips list, which you talked about a second ago. What's left is dividing your time between the different sections in accordance with your situation. So one topic every 2 days, but if you have exactly 60 days, you're going to have to fit a few topics that you find easier into just 1 day, not 2 days. If you have a little bit more than 60 days, you can do literally one topic every 2 days, all the topics. Now, in addition to the subject review, parallel to it, you want to create a daily routine of reading magazine articles and going over your vocabulary and memorization lists, which is on the example is taken from our vocabulary and memorization section. By the way, one of you asked if this will be circulated. Yes, all of you that signed up are going to get a recording of this, so you'll be able to rewind and listen to everything I'm saying again and again, especially if I'm going too fast. So take heed of that. Now, if you're a non-native speaker, going over the vocabulary memorization is really essential, and you should take up at least an hour and a half to an hour and a half daily. One last thing is take a day off a week, okay? Very important. Do something fun. After this first 47 days, you should have 2 or 3 days that are unscheduled because you never know what might come up and what things you might have to move around and delay to hear. So it's good to have a few unscheduled days. And then you have kind of the last 10 days, days 51 to 58 around. And these days should be devoted to a few things, okay? It should be devoted to reviewing. Okay, every other day you're going to want to go over 2 or 3 major topics, which includes fundamentally reviewing sections or subject matters that the practice tests have shown to you are problematic, going over your own personal material summary, the goal being to get to the point where board is obvious. And if I wake you up in the middle of the night and I ask you, what is the adjacent angle equal to a triangle, you can say, oh, it equals both of the internal angles. Okay? And going over your practical tips list and your mistakes list, which we already discussed. On the other, if that was every odd day, then every even day in the last 10 days, you should be doing practice tests. Okay? Take a GMAT CAT from start to finish. Now, if you're going to be able to take days off of work, try and do a test at the exact same hour that your real test is going to be, and then spend the afternoon reviewing it. The rest of the day should be used for solving questions that are similar to those that you got wrong. So if you see that, oh, I really had trouble on questions with the Pythagoras theorem, go to the triangles section on examPAL and seek out these questions, or go to the official guide on GMAT and solve triangles questions. Okay? After all of this, the last day before the test is one you should take off, relax, breathe, reach out to the people you've been ignoring for the past 2 months, and most importantly, get a good night's sleep. And after that, on test day, ace it, you should be fully prepared. So looking at John, who we described in the beginning, let's just take a peek at his plan. This is a week in his plan, and as you can see, he studies a total of 3 hours a day on weekdays, half of that devoted to verbal study, and he studies another 4 to 8 hours on a weekend, meaning he has enough time both for his job and for other pursuits, going to the gym, going to a social event, and even taking an entire day off a week. And taking another 7 weeks like this is enough study to prepare over a 2-month period, even given that he has to take off an entire week for a business trip, as we said before. The point being, not that your plan, of course, has to look exactly like this, but that if it looks something like this, that's going to be enough, and this is a general outline. Okay, so that's what a 2-month study plan looks like, and I'm just going to talk shortly now about other options, because what if you don't have 2 months? Okay, say for whatever reason you have to take the test in 30 days. This is hard, but it's possible, even if you have a job and can't devote your entire life to studies. Okay, it's possible, say, if you're someone like Larry who has decided to apply in 6 weeks at the spur of the moment and he has to take it in a month, and he has a full-time job, but he's prepared to devote all of his evenings and all of his weekends to studying. Okay, so 3 hours on a weekday and 14 hours total over the weekend. So If you're someone like this and you're prepared to work hard, then it's definitely possible. It has some pretty obvious cons. First of all, the pressure, and second of all, the difficulty to find a work-study balance. You're probably not going to be too much fun over the next couple of weeks. But there are even a few pros, okay? Studying over such a short time means that you're going to be fresh and sharp. You're not going to have enough time to forget anything, which is good. Um, so if this is your situation, again, we don't recommend it, but if this is a situation if you have to, say goodbye to your friends and families, and let's plan. So really, a lot of this is pretty similar to the 2-month plan. That's why I'm not going to go into too much detail. Basically, you're going to have daily study. You can still take a day off a week. And what we did before in the first 47 days, here we're going to do in the first 20 days. We're going to spend the first 20 days doing a subject review and practice. Okay? And what we did before, every topic we had a 2-day mini schedule. Now we're going to do for 1 day per topic. So what does that look like, this 1-day topic mini schedule? So this is just an example. It doesn't actually have to be morning, afternoon, and all of that. It can all be in the evening if you're working, and early morning and evening. But the point is that during a day of study, we're going to want to fit in both reviewing fundamental material, going over our summary and our practical tips list, and also solving subject-related questions. Are we going to have to do this, not in as much detail as we were going to do in a 2-month plan? Yes, but that's okay. That's just the conditions that we're in. But we still should have time to solve some subject-related questions, and all the time keep working, reviewing our mistakes list and our tips list, and spend some time. I recommend either at the very beginning of the day or at the end of the day, so as not to break up your patterns. Spend some time working on your grammatical skills, your reading and memorization. Okay, and then in the last 10 days, it's actually exactly like the last 10 days of the 2-month plan. On odd days, you're going to be reviewing, and on even days, you're going to be practicing. All right, here is what you're going to take the day before the test off, and on test day, you're going to show the world what you're made of. So if we look at Larry's study plan, you can see that it's quite a bit more rigid than the one we saw before, right? He goes straight from work to studying, or actually straight from studying to work back to studying, and he fits both a topic review and a practice in the same evening. And while he does give himself off 1 day off on the weekend, on Saturday, and the other day, Sunday, he really studies from dawn to dusk. Okay, fitting 3 separate topics in. It's not easy, but with 30 days like this, Larry can be prepared for the test, and so can you if you're willing to work this hard, and this is something like your situation. Now, real quick, I'm going to talk about one last type of study plan. You might want to take a test in 90 days, okay? But now, as I said before, this is not what we recommend, but it still might make sense for some people. Say someone like Tammy, who's a first-time test taker, but really has a very busy life. So much so that she can only set aside 2 hours of studying 3 times a week during the work week. Can't take off any work before the test. She can study significantly more on the weekends, but she has a few other serious constraints. Say, for example, a month in, she has a family vacation, and a month after that, she has to take an entire week off to prepare a presentation for work. This is the type of time pressure that can push someone to go for a 90. Okay? So I want to reiterate, though, this plan is meant for those who are really extremely busy. It's not recommended if you simply think that you're going to study a lot and you think the more time studying, the merrier. The truth is 3 months is a very long time, and it's probably too long. The concern is that by the time you wrap up your studies, you will have forgotten a good deal of what you studied at the beginning, which is a danger. And also, at a certain point, studying really just becomes exhausting and less effective. So remember, you should be aiming for 100 to 120 hours of study time, and over 3 months, it's really barely an hour a day. So it really only makes sense if you really have very little time. And if it's not the case, then we recommend going for the 2-month plan. And even if you want to take a test 3 months from now, you should probably start the 2-month plan in a month from now. Up until then, just spend time working on your reading skills. But the 2-month plan still makes sense. Okay, the relevant scenario, though, is one we've already mentioned. If you're a non-native speaker, then we recommend devoting a month really seriously to working on your language skills, devoting time each day to reading magazine articles, and then begin the 60-day study plan. Okay? Another note is that if you are going to go for this plan, it's a good idea to find a real-life exam pal, a study buddy. That's going to make it more doable and more enjoyable, really. So how do we do this plan? So basically, it's like the 2-month study plan, but more spread out. What we did in 47 days in the study plan here, we're going to do in 77 days. Okay. And sorry, there's a typo here. It should say a 3-day, not a 1-day topic mini schedule. So we're going to be able to devote 3 days to each topic. Of course, in each day we have less time to go over it. So on one day we're going to study fundamental material, which means watching lessons and intro. On the second day we're going to practice um, subject-related questions, and on the third day we're going to review what was in what we discovered in the practice. Okay, and then we're going to have a few unscheduled days as usual, and the last 10 days are pretty similar to what we've already seen. They're going to be devoted to review and practice tests. And here as well, we recommend taking the last day before the test off, and on the test, of course, acing it. Okay, and if we just take a really brief look at Tammy's study plan, look at all the stuff she has during the week that is not studying, right? She has 2 nights a week where she's doing other things, okay? And she really can only study about an hour and a half on most weekdays, and 4 hours, or here I guess a little bit more, but a few hours on the weekend. But even given all these constraints, a 90-day plan will get her across the finish line, and it can get you across the finish line as well if you're ready to put in the work. So we're almost done. I'm just going to give you a few last tips, whichever study plan you use, okay? And first one is that silence is golden. Okay, your phone should be silenced. It should be in a different room under a pillow. Your browser should have no other tabs open except examPAL.com, of course. And you really need to find a study place without a lot of other people. You also do not need to go to the fridge every 20 minutes to see if there have been any updates there. If you're having trouble grasping something, then the important follow-up question is, what is the type of thing you're having trouble grasping? What is your problem? If it's something small, if you just something that materially you find confusing, push it to the review days at the end of the test. Don't get caught up. If it's something fundamental, you really say that you don't understand the logic of absolute value, then you really should prolong the time devoted to it and shorten the time given to some other subject, okay? But don't, however, by any means erase any subject from your schedule entirely, even if it's one you feel confident about. Being good at a subject is nice, but we want to be great at it. Remember, another thing is that remember that mistakes are opportunities, okay? Research your mistakes, ask yourself, why did this happen? What needs to be done differently? Keep a running list of different mistake types, examples, tips on how to approach them correctly. You're really better off doing 500 questions and really understanding them than doing 10,000 questions robotically. Lastly, or almost lastly, get 8 hours of sleep every night, no exceptions, and exercise is highly recommended. So we're pretty close to being done, and before we finish, we want to tell you guys thank you for being with us and with PrepAdviser, and we want to reiterate our special offer to you, which I mentioned before. Just for the next 24 hours, it's the last chance to take part in our Black Friday sale, in which you can save 40% on any of our GMAT courses. So go to examPAL.com and take us up on it. So that's really it, guys. Oh, by the way, keep in mind, if you've already taken the GMAT, you're going to be also eligible for our Success Guarantee program, which I mentioned at the beginning, which we guarantee 70 points improvement. So look that up on the site. Take us up on that. That's pretty much it. I hope this has helped you think about your upcoming weeks and months prior to the GMAT and how they should look. If you've signed up and you have, you're going to get a recording of this webinar so you can re-listen. And I'm here to answer questions in the chat. Now I'm going to be here for a few more minutes, but more importantly, at examPAL.com, we have 24/7, we have chat going in which me and my fellow teachers are always available to answer you. So really feel free to try us and you'll see how fast we will respond. So that's it, guys. I hope I didn't speak too quickly and you guys understood what I was saying. And as I mentioned, I'm going to be here in the chat. So see you guys on examPAL.com. See you in future webinars. Thanks for being with us. Have a good one.